if there are no questions, let's get started. And I'm pleased to invite on the stage a good friend of mine, an expert in the field of strategy dynamics, Kim Warren. I will briefly tell you a few things about his profile. Last week, by the way, I was invited on a panel discussion by the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants in Australia, and we talked about exactly this topic. We had Professor David Brown from the University of Sydney presenting his latest research on the topic of performance management. And then the discussion switched towards performance management systems, strategy, balanced scorecards. Where are we at in Australia in this context? The discussion gradually got to a stage where we started talking about modeling, doing modeling with data, and going beyond just the basics of measuring performance, but looking at how can we anticipate future performance, or how can we make smarter decisions based on existing data. And when we started talking about modeling, we started talking about systems thinking and systems dynamics, more advanced topics. And I mentioned Kim Warren's work and his name, and the response was very positive in the audience. They said, it's great, Aurel, that you mentioned this work, because we are across this, and we think that indeed it's one of the most advanced, let's say, bodies of knowledge in the field. With that, I invite Kim on stage, and I look forward to see what's the latest in this field.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Aurel, and thanks, Alex, for all the organisation that's gone into getting this thing going today. I'm going to talk to you about this topic here, what I call engineering the enterprise with living business models. I spent 15 years doing strategy in real corporations. I spent most of that time in a business which now operates the largest number of hotels and restaurants in the United Kingdom. We built that business from nothing during the 1980s and 1990s. And I moved on to talk about strategy and teach strategy at London Business School. And I had a big frustration, which is that the strategy tools that were available in the books and the tools I was asked to teach in class really didn't get me to where I needed to be when I was trying to help people figure out the strategy for an organisation. And what do I mean by that? In very simple terms, strategy has been thought of as choosing a position. Who are you going to serve, with what, and how are you going to do it? And if you read the strategy textbooks, all the strategy textbooks, that's essentially the question that they're trying to answer, right? Two things about that. First of all, it doesn't change very often. So if you look at the answer to that question for IKEA, or Southwest Airlines, or many, many businesses, you get the same answer to that question today that you got 20 years ago. Right? It's an important question, but it basically doesn't change. So how do I figure out what I'm going to do each month and each quarter if the answer to that question really doesn't change? Second thing about that is that it does not explain the difference between successful and unsuccessful organizations. I don't know how many low-fare airlines there are in the Asia region, but I can tell you there are over 40 in Europe, of whom about 5 are successful and the rest are failures. They struggle on, not getting anywhere, being unprofitable, going out of business. Their answer to that question is essentially all the same. So how do you explain the 5 superstars and the 35 failures when that is supposed to be the answer to the question, right? And the thing that's missing is, how do you get from that to what I'm actually going to do? What am I going to do? How much, when, in all functions, at all times, with what outcomes? I can't get from the strategy tools to that. I can't get a time-phased action plan out of the positioning tools. I'll say a little bit more about that in the session tomorrow morning. And why do I want that? Well, I want that because I want to know what the results are going to be. I want to know what next month's revenue is going to be and sales, and I want to know how profits are going to grow, and I want to know What investors really want to know is they want to know what the cash flow forecast looks like. Right? It's axiomatic in the finance field that the value of a corporation is the present value of future discounted free cash flows. That's absolutely rock solid. The principle is well understood, and everyone knows that that's what you've got to do. Your job in building a strategy for an organization is to deliver strong future free cash flows. I'll say a little bit about non-profit organizations at other times, but for corporate, commercial, profit-making businesses, that's your job, right? That's what investors give you money for. So how do you get that out of a time-phased action plan when you can't get the time-phased action plan out of the strategy, right? This is a real challenge. Now, we have got some things going for us that are helping a bit. So Balanced Scorecard has begun to make some contributions to this, all right? It's begun to make that a little bit better than it has been in the past. And of course, we've got these key performance indicators that tell us how well the organization is performing. So that's the journey that we need to go on. And what I want to do is I want to kind of step back from this and think, well, if that's what we're after, how do we need to change the way we're thinking about this in order to get that? And what I'm doing is, instead of starting here and trying to figure my way forward there, I'm going to start here and try and drill my way back. And when you do that, where you get to is that any organization is what we call a designed system. It may be written up in your business plans, it may be written up in your enterprise architectures, but it may be deliberate, or it may be accidental, it may be intentional, but that's what the board, the executive board do. You design the way the organization functions so that it could perform well. You design, you develop products that you think the market will want to buy. You hire the people to make the system actually work. You spend the money building the capacity so that the system can actually generate the product to get to the customers so they can give you the money. And the money goes back around and invests again in the capital equipment and in the people in the product development. So you design the system so that it could work well. Your second job is then to manage the system so that it actually does work well. So when should I introduce products? What products should they be? Which customers should I target? How should I market to them? How many people do I hire? Of what skill mix? So the enterprise is a designed system. It's a machine. In the case of commercial corporate organizations, it's a machine whose purpose is to make cash. It needs to make more cash than it consumes in its own existence. Other organizations, governmental organizations, non-profit organizations, have other purposes, but they too need the fuel of cash. So an organization is a designed system. What do we have to help us with this? Well, how many of you have heard the phrase business models? Do you know what a business model is? Well, it's one of the latest fashionable things in the strategy field, and business model is supposed to help you meet this purpose of understanding what the system is. Now, I'm going to take you through two examples. One is the simplest possible example I can find of a business system, and the second one is a more substantial and challenging one. So this is what's called a business model canvas. This is one of the business model tools in the field that's quite popular. And it's an IT support business, a very, very simple business. You'll find these organizations in every city, in every region around the world. The really, really big ones are companies like CSC, right? They do IT outsourcing for companies. But when you're a small or medium business, you too need IT support. If you are a law firm or a car dealership, your job is to be a law firm or a car dealership. It's not to be an IT expert, right? So they outsource this task to these kinds of companies. So for this business, the customer segments are small and medium enterprises in the local market. The key activities are to win new clients. We want new clients. We want to take on their IT systems. We provide routine support to those organizations to ensure that their IT helps their business. We provide hardware and software upgrade help for them, and we need to hire our own support staff so that we can do that. So that's one of our key activities. Our key resources, well, our clients are a resource, our customers. Your customers are a resource. They are something that generates something useful for you in terms of revenue. Your other key resource is the support staff themselves and the experience of those people. You want IT people who know what they're doing. They've done it for some time. Your value proposition is really very simple. We provide low-cost, reliable IT support. If that isn't true, then your clients are unhappy. That's your value proposition. Customer relationships, these are small enterprises. You sell to the CEO, right? Sometimes, if it's slightly larger, maybe the finance officer. And you provide direct support to the client staff. So those are your relationships. The channels through which you sell this service, well, there aren't any, because you are dealing directly with the clients themselves. If you're in the insurance industry, say, there might be channels. You might sell through brokers or through intermediaries. But here, your channels are direct to the user. And there might be partners. You might need partners to help you do your business. Not in this case, right? There are no partners here. You just deal directly with them yourself. Now, this stuff on the left tells you about your cost structure. So your costs are driven by support staff and the overhead necessary to run the business, and the revenue is driven by the number of hours of work you do for the clients. So that is the business model canvas for this organization. But it is extremely ambiguous. They use terms like resources and channels and partners and relationships, which are undefined and unquantifiable. We've no idea from that what scale this business is. Has it got 10 clients or has it got 10,000? Has it got 5 staff or 5,000? 500? Is its price $5 an hour or $5,000 an hour? We've got no clue about how big this business is. We don't know if it works. Right? We've got no idea from this whether what we described in those boxes actually works or not. Is it viable? We've got no way of testing its uncertainties here. We've got no way of figuring out what might happen if another competitor came along or if it decided to go for larger customers at all. And we can't get anything out of this about sales or cash flow. There's nothing here at all. It's completely qualitative, descriptive, and doesn't tell us anything about performance. So what do we need? Well, what we need is we need quantified working models of the business. In any other field, when you build models, the model does what the real thing does. When engineers build a model of an aeroplane, an aircraft, it does what the aircraft does. When drugs companies use computer models of drug molecules, the molecules in the model do what the molecule in the body actually does. When we build a model of a rail network, the model does what the rail network does. It's not kind of something else, right? That's what we expect of models. And that allows us to explore the future. If we've got a model that does what the real world does, we can explore how it will behave in the future. And we can test our own strategies, and we can test external things that might happen to us. What if there was a recession? How would our business perform, and what would we do about it? So the generic questions that we need to answer is, why is performance going the way it is? Where might it go in the future? And how can we improve that performance into the future? So let's go back to our IT company. This is the situation the company actually faced when we did this work. It had been growing successfully, and was beginning to show signs of being less successful. It was losing clients. And the fear was that it would carry on getting worse, and the hope was that we could improve that over the coming 12 months. So we're looking at 24 months of history and 12 months of the future. And the financial results look pretty much the same. The profit chart had the same shape as that. No particular surprise to that. So we've got this business model. Here, the business is working great. Here, exactly the same business model is not working great, and it's in danger of doing very badly indeed. And lastly, the same model could do really well again, right? So we've got exactly the same business model running all the way through that story, delivering completely different performance results. Completely different. So I will simply show you what this model looks like, and maybe if we've got time, give you a quick demonstration of it. But where we start is that we have time charts of the thing we're trying to explain. And this is the number of problems that our clients have been experiencing. We've been doing less good work to support our clients. So the problem rate has been going up. Why is that? Because our staff have been under pressure. This is the ratio between the amount of service demand coming from clients. So there's the service demand going up, 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 and the amount of capacity of our staff. So our staff have not been able to do the work that our clients have been giving us. Where does that come from? Well, that service demand comes from how many clients have we got and how many support hours do they need. I multiply clients by hours they need, and that gives me the total service demand. What's the service capacity? It's the number of people I have, which has not been increasing very much, multiplied by the number of hours of work, productive work, that our people can do. Every one of those relationships is very simple. It's just maths. It's not even maths, it's arithmetic. This is not complicated stuff. Right? It's not complicated. But it describes what's really happening. That chart there is the actual company's records for the number of client problems. You know, it's not an example of what it might be. It is. It is the actual numbers. This is the actual number of clients. This is the actual number of staff. Right? The important thing is when you're doing this work with the management team, they recognize everything on this picture. Right? This is completely familiar information. We're not talking about abstract ideas about competitive advantage or value propositions. This is actual real stuff. Now here's the little clever bit in the thing. If we want to understand what's happened to the number of clients we've got, think of this as a tank holding water, all right? And this is water flowing into the tank, and this is water flowing out of the tank. Well, that number has increased because more water flowed into the tank. We won a lot of clients. Right? Why did it fall again? Well, because water started flowing out of the tank. Clients were starting to be lost. This, by the way, is exactly the same way that cash works. This is cash in your bank account, cash paid in, cash paid out. This is the balance sheet and the cash flow statement for your business in financial terms. So all we're doing is we're applying the same discipline to customers that we apply to cash. This is a customer flow statement. And here's the arithmetic. We had 128 last month. We've got 121 this month. We added one. Therefore, how many did we lose? Does anyone have any difficulty working that out? No, it's not. This is not kind of higher maths here. This is quite simple stuff. So this is what we call a resource, and this thing's a resource. This is the flow rates that add to and subtract from the resource, and it continues through time. The same framework applies to customers, it applies to staff, it applies to capacity, it applies to product range, it applies to cash, it applies to intangibles, and it applies to capabilities. Right? That's everything you need. That's the whole suite of things you need to build a business model, and they all behave like that. They fill up over time and they drain away over time. Okay, so now we can put all this together. There's the problems that our clients were getting. Those problems came from the imbalance between demand and capacity. The demand came from the number of clients and the capacity came from the number of staff. So why did the number of staff fall? Well, the number of staff fell because there was a lot of pressure on staff because of this imbalance, which means that staff left. The work gets too much, people leave. Why did clients leave? Well, clients left because of these problems. The problems arose because of the pressure on staff because of this imbalance. This is the system. This is the engineered system that generates this organization's performance. Now, we don't have the time or the facilities to do this right now, but this is something you can do. If you go to that link, you can play that business. You can actually make those decisions for that business and see how it performs. There are some instructions in here about how to play this. When you go to that link, these instructions are in the actual model itself. So read the instructions down the side. It will show you what to do. You make some decisions and you play this model like you're playing a video game. You make some decisions, step forward, and off you go. And I've given you a little challenge here. So, can you grow this business without losing clients? So, these are the principles that lie behind this. What we're trying to do is explain how performance changes over time. We're not trying to explain ratios. We're not trying to explain indicators at a point in time. We're trying to explain how performance changes, because that's what you do. You want to change performance. You want to improve performance. That performance depends on those stocks. In this case, clients and staff. Those stocks accumulate. Clients are won, clients are lost, staff are hired, staff are lost. And the decisions you take affect those rates of change. You decide how many clients to try to win. You decide how many staff to hire. That's what you decide. There are external factors as well. So competitors might be trying to win the same clients that you are. And the existing things that you've got also determine how fast things change. What that gives you is a working quantified model of the enterprise, or any part of the enterprise. We could just build that model about the HR system. We could just build a model about the customer pipeline, or any issue. This is an issue-based model. We're trying to fix this problem. It could be for the whole enterprise. It could be your business plan for a number of years. I've now completed this by adding the income statement here. That's revenue, that's staff cost, that's overhead. Profit is revenue minus costs, and you can see what's happened to the revenue. This is a screenshot from the actual model you can play. I'll explain a bit more about how these models actually work in the session at first thing tomorrow morning. But basically, they're not complicated. Any decent analyst should be able to do this. Furthermore, it's obvious where the key performance indicators are in it. There's no problem finding the key performance indicators in this picture. It's the pressure on staff, it's the problems per client, it's the client loss rate, it's the staff turnover. KPIs just fall out of these models automatically. And we can go further. We can actually start automating some of the decision making. The reason this business got in trouble was because it failed to hire the staff it needed to keep up with its client growth. Well, we can build policy into the model itself. We can make the model decide for us how many staff to hire. We do this already. When you go and you book a flight on a low-fare airline, there isn't some analyst sitting in an office somewhere trying to figure out whether you should be charged $40 or $45, is there? There's something called a yield management system. It's a computer system that figures out what the price should be. That is automated managerial decision making. We can do the same with some of these strategy questions too. Okay, let me give you a bigger example. This is a case I worked on last year with the CEO of this company. What it does is it makes equipment to clean the water in the bottom of the ships. And the reason we need it clean is because a ship in Shanghai harbour picks up little bugs and little fishy things from the water. It then sails to New York and it pumps the water out along with the bugs and the fishy things into New York Harbour. And New York Harbour does not want the bugs from Singapore and the other way around. So the International Maritime Organization is on the point, literally today, that they need kind of one more vote out of 300 or something to approve a regulation to require every ship on the ocean to have this equipment fitted. This company makes that equipment. There are three kinds of equipment for doing this. You can basically filter the bugs out of the water. You can treat it with chlorine. This is how you keep your swimming pool clean, really. Or you can treat it with ultraviolet light. Intense ultraviolet radiation will kill the bugs. And the company we're looking at uses that technology there. So these regulations are literally about to be triggered any day now. There are 35 different systems from over 50 suppliers. 50 companies are not going to survive this. There is going to be a bloodbath between these companies, and somewhere between 5 and 10 will survive. The other 40 will fail. We've been here before, right? This happens in industry after industry. There are 57,000 vessels, each of which has to go into dock for maintenance once every 5 years. So that means 11,500 vessels per year will have to be fitted with this equipment. There's a 5-year window of opportunity to get this equipment installed in these ships. The challenge is, how do you get the ship operators to buy your equipment? How do you get it rapidly installed in their fleet? And how do you get your equipment into new vessels that get built as well? And there are references here. You can go and see the company and you can go and see the regulations as well. So this is a control panel for the business's business plan. This is a 5-year business plan, and that's what they expect to happen to the number of models of equipment that they offer, going up to 5 over that time. This is what they expect to happen to the number of customers, the number of sales, the installed base. This is the number of ships on the ocean that have got your equipment in them. And this is the income statement. This is your revenue, which comes from these sales to these customers. This is the cost of goods. That's the manufactured cost of making the equipment. Down here, you've got some cash operating expenses. And this is what the model was built for. This is what they expect to have happen to the company's cash. Now, why do you want to know that? Well, you may notice that there are some little dotted lines here. Those dotted lines are the first 21 months of actual results. This is the first 21 months of the company's actual performance. And the reason the CEO wanted this model was he wanted to take this picture to the board of the company and say, please can I have 3 million euros for the next phase of development? This is a model of the business plan to get backing with serious amounts of money for the growth of this business. Right? That's what the model was built for. And this is the model itself, the whole model. And up at the top, that's the R&D area up there where we're developing models of equipment. These are agents who sell our equipment for us into shipyards and ship operators. This is the customers. This is the number of actual ship operators who are using our equipment. And down here, these are the projects. We've got a flow of projects. This is orders in hand, equipment being produced, waiting to be installed. And this is the number of vessels with our equipment in it. This piece is the sales effort. This is how many salespeople we have and what we ask them to do. And this is the income statement and cash flow that comes out of this. And up there you can see the control panel I just showed you. And we've got price and competition in there as well. Now, this is not difficult. To build this model took 2 Skype calls of 2 hours and 2 days of work to put the data in. It is easier to build these models than it is to build spreadsheets that can't answer the question for you. This is a better way of doing strategy and implementation than anything else that we've got by miles. Spreadsheets are frankly not fit for purpose when you're trying to do this kind of thing. You can get spreadsheets out of it and you can feed it with information from spreadsheets, but if you want a working model of your business, this is what it looks like. Now, why do these models work when others can't? Well, because they capture real-world phenomena. This issue of things accumulating over time, customers being won and lost, staff being hired and being lost, it's a real-world phenomenon. There is no substitute for it. You cannot substitute for it with regression analysis. It does not work. There's interdependence in the system. This captures the interdependence. We've got these numbers for this reason. There are many feedback mechanisms in this. In the slide deck you will see, when Alex makes it available, you will see that there are feedback effects that accelerate growth for the IT company, and there are other feedback mechanisms that press down and prevent the business going forward. There are numerous thresholds. The thresholds all over the place. Anyone familiar with the book The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell? Well worth a read. There are tipping points, but the fallacy, the mistaken understanding is that they think that tipping points are all to do with these feedback mechanisms. Once I get a small number of people buying my product, other people will see it, or they will talk to their friends, and then they will start buying the product much more frequently. That's reinforcing feedback that looks like it generates tipping points. That's not really a tipping point. The tipping point is, for example, our IT company was perfectly okay as long as our capacity, our IT support capacity, was greater than the service demand. And it continued to be okay. And then it continued to be okay until the two lines crossed, when all of a sudden it was not okay. You'd be very careful about your key performance indicator things, by the way, and your balanced scorecard things. You can have green all over your balanced scorecard, but it's not telling you that in 3 months' time it will be red, because those lines are on a trajectory where they will cross. And what we can do with these models is we can look forward to when those lines will cross, when those thresholds will kick in. You get good thresholds as well as bad ones. They're not all bad news. So the science behind this goes back to MIT in the 1960s. It's been around for a very long time. It deals explicitly and quantitatively with all of these mechanisms. That's why the method was developed. I just wish I had known about it 40 years ago when I started out in strategy. Sorry, 35 years ago. I'm not that old. If I knew then what I know now, things would have been very, very different. It's a very powerful mechanism. Okay, there's plenty more resources for you to go and see. If you go to this YouTube channel here, there's lots and lots of videos on there. The software is at that address. Where we're going next with this is we're going to make this an operational model. The CEO in Norway is in the process of changing the model I just showed you from a monthly 5-year forward model to a model which operates weekly, with weekly data on order flows, on pricing, on installation rates, on staff levels. It's going to be an operational model that deals it will also deal with the 5-year future, but it will give you weekly operational control information as well. So there we go. I better stop there so I leave you some time for questions. So thank you for your attention. I hope you found that useful. Tomorrow morning we will actually go into a little bit about how the models actually work and connect them to balanced scorecard and KPIs. And on Friday we've got a whole day workshop on how to, I'll show you how to build these models.
Again, question here. So you mentioned that the cash flow is equivalent to the customer flow. But in certain businesses, for example, insurance, right, do have circumstances where there are customers that we cannot offer. For example, he bought a premium, but the claims are very high. Every year there are claims, so these are customers that think, hey, I may not want to keep this customer right now, right?
Yeah.
How does the model help to predict?
Okay, so you've got a stock of customers who are policyholders. The policyholders pay you a premium rate. So your revenue is the premiums multiplied by the number of policyholders you have. A fraction of those policyholders generate claims, and the claims generate costs, and you have people who have to deal with the claims. So what we can do is we can look at something called the quality profile of your customer base. So not all customers are the same. So at the nice end, you've got customers who pay you nice big premiums all the time. They never make a claim, and you just sit there counting the money, right? And towards the end, right, we've got customers over here who are always causing problems, and they're making big claims, and you're losing money on them. So yeah, we capture the costs generated by customers as well as the revenues generated by them. Yeah. We can also segment these models as well. So that stock of customers being won and lost, we can say, well, actually, we've got this segment, this segment, this segment, and this segment. We simply build the model once, and then the business model calls as many copies of that model as it wants. Right? So we can segment the customers that way. Any other questions I can help you with? Yeah.
Will you be showing us how external factors can impact these models?
External factors, yes. Let me see, will I do that? There's a little one tomorrow coming up. In fact, we've already got external factors in that marine engineering case, because that stock of ships, that 57,000 vessels, that determines the rate at which vessels become available to be sold to. Right? We've got the other 50 companies. Those 50 companies are trying to capture those 57,000 ships as we are. So the question is, do we capture those ships, or do the competitors capture the ships? So the model will include, in fact, the model the CEO is building right now, it will include how many competitors are offering similar equipment to us, and what will determine whether those customers choose our equipment or they choose our competitors' equipment. Now, if you go to more economy-wide questions like what's happening to economic growth, what's happening to growth in consumer expenditure, those kinds of issues, then that determines, you remember we had that stock of clients, with clients being won and lost. If you think about an airline is dependent on the population of people who want to fly. Now, in economic boom times, the total population of people who want to fly increases because there are more people with more income who can afford to do it. When you have recessions like you did in 2008, then that population of all the people who can afford to fly starts to drain away, because people, their income, they lose their job, or their salary goes down, or they just decide that they're not going to spend the money in case they need it for something else. So we handle exogenous factors of that kind. Yeah, definitely. Yes.
The charts or the measures you've shown in the different parts of the models, do they capture only the past data, or make forecast into the future as well?
Well, what we try to do, you may have noticed on some of the charts there were red lines and there were blue lines, right? The red lines were real-world data of history up to the current point. The blue line is what the model says should have happened. So when you build the model of history, you want to get the blue line to match the red line. You want the model to explain how you got to today. You then let the model go, and the model will show you, if you got the relationships right, how the future will likely turn out. Now, there are uncertainties on that, of course, but we can put uncertainties into the model. We can say, what if the staff turnover rate was 20% rather than 15%? What if the customer churn rate was 15% rather than 12%? But the model is running forward into the future with your assumptions about those external factors, about competition, about what you will do. So yeah, the model, that's kind of the point. That business plan model for the marine engineering business, that was a forecast of the business performance. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.